I could actually sleep, like really sleepy. But I made myself a mixed drink last night. Lime juice.
Really?
Yes.
Shut the front door.
Yeah, Denise.
I'd rather be blind. That's the name of Etta James' song.
I'd
He
rather
took the,
okay.
Yeah.
Because when I heard that song, I listened to it and I was like, this is the ballad.
yes, he straight stole it.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey,
But that's what they do.
that's what they do in the music industry.
Well, that's what they do with my.
That's what your people do.
People have done a lot of shit. Okay? People have done a lot of shit. Still are doing a lot of shit.
All right, Jesse.
You guys have a great
All
day.
right, Jess.
Take some
Thank
time
you.
for yourself, son.
I will. I promise.
That's a pretty leaf on to that.
Mm-hmm. You online.
Give me a second. Sorry.
What is it?
What are the reasons that you're looking
Oh, but you don't know what it is. You have your keys, so you have your wallets. You have your computer, then you have your headphones. What kind of bag is it?
tie-dye, but there's no way I left it in my car. Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everybody's having a great Thursday morning so far. Hey, you're listening to the Workplace here on KABF 88.3 FM. You heard the music, you know what time it is, and so glad to have you here this morning. Take a moment just to breathe. Okay. Sometimes you got to take a second just to breathe. You got a lot of stuff going on, and you just need to calm yourself down, get your mind and your space right. Once again, just want to thank you. For tuning in this morning. You could be doing a whole lot of other things, but you have decided to stop by KABF 88.3 FM and tune into.
Keep talking.
Yeah, and tune in to us. I was hearing something. Got a great show for you this morning. I want to continue to thank all of you who have given and donated to KABF 88.3 FM so that we can continue to do what we do for the past 40 years and heading to our 41st year. So I want to take the opportunity to give my co-host, the Reverend Dr. Denise, the opportunity to greet us this morning.
Grand Rising humans. Yes. I was trying to see if I have an announcement. The only thing that I can think of right now is that the Devil at the Crossroads, remember Virgin Miller is on the flyer for that, promoting that artistic piece that is being shown at the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts, starring a Black man who was also on Pose. So just to remind you that you can look it up and see exactly what's going on. I'll try to pull up the flyer in just a minute to get you the details, but that is happening. So don't forget about that.
And I have this one announcement. Tomorrow from 12 to 3, the Democratic National Committee will be holding their executive committee meeting at the Doubletree Hotel. We, United Labor Unions Local 100, Arkansas Committee Organizations, and Anthropocene Alliance, and quite a few other organizations, we are coming together to do a action at 12 o'clock tomorrow at the Doubletree Hotel downtown Markham Avenue, trying to put pressure on the Democratic Party to stop some of these policies that are really detrimental to so many people, to do more, to stand up and fight more on the issue of labor, on the issue of health care, and especially, which we'll be talking about today. But if you're not doing anything tomorrow, come on down to the Doubletree Hotel and be a part of this action. It's an opportunity. I believe our voices are powerful, our voices are strong, and if you keep your voice silent, then you can't complain about some of the things that are happening. So if you're not, once again, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, come join us for this action. Really putting pressure on the Democratic Committee, National Committee, to stand and fight even more against some of these policies.
Okay, y'all, I got that wrong. The time I got that all kind of wrong.
She was working on it.
I got it all kind of wrong. It's Me and the Devil. That's the name of it, and it is being showcased at the Rep, not the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts. I'm so used to going to the AMFA that I just got that all wrong. So so Toney, for your question for your event on tomorrow, Lo wants to know, will there be voter registration?
Yeah, we can make that happen.
You can absolutely make that happen.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Show up to make that
Yeah,
happen.
we can make that happen.
Yeah. We can make that happen, Lo. Thanks. That's good looking out. I also want to let you know that I got this message from Black man politician Virgil Miller. He and I have conversations off and online all the time, and he has an aunt that he absolutely admires, that he is inspired by. I really think he wants to be her when he grows up, but he ain't made it there yet.
You did put black man politician on my.
But her name is Maudale Miller Shrek, and she did a lot of. She's a local activist in Berkeley side. Isn't that in Chicago?
Is that Berkeley side?
Is that in Chicago? Anyway, where she's from, they have rebuilt, they have redesigned and rededicated an entire housing facility in her honor, and they are celebrating her, they are honoring her, they are remembering her, they are calling her name, they are telling her story as a Black woman politician who's doing the work that what it really means to be a public servant, making sure that you fill in those gaps, especially for the needs of people who are human and deserve to be treated as such. And so he sent me the article. I haven't read it yet, but I knew exactly what he was talking about because he's been telling me that it was coming up, and they are now cutting the ribbon for that ceremony. So I say, woo-hoo. So good, great shout out to Maudale Miller Shrek.
Okay, and so we're just gonna get started. Any more announcements?
I can't think of any.
Okay, so I just want to go ahead and get started on the show today. Yesterday, just give you a little background. I have a brother who lives in Pine Bluff, who's disabled. He's able to, he's able to do a lot of things. One of the things that he has that is difficult for him to speak and understand, to communicate and understand, to communicate what his thoughts are, and to listen or decipher what other people are saying to him. So I have to help him out with a lot of stuff, especially with his doctor's appointments. So yesterday, I'm on my way to Pine Bluff. I'm on my way.
Oh, that's yours?
Yeah, that's mine.
Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you.
I'm on my way to Pine Bluff, and as I'm driving, between Little Rock and Redfield, it was pretty. The roads are pretty clean. The sides of the streets are pretty clean. The closer I got to Pine Bluff, and once I got into Pine Bluff, I started to see, just trash on the side of the highway. Which is no big deal. You see trash and stuff quite often. But once I started driving through the city, going to my brother's house, and I started to see not just trash. They talk about abandoned cars in the yard. They're talking about dilapidated buildings and different things. And so it got me to thinking. We talk about environmental justice, and I think Denise, was I talking to you the other day about Elon Musk and his supercomputers?
Yes, in Memphis.
In Memphis. So Elon Musk has already had one big facility for the supercomputer. He's building another one. He hasn't started yet, but he's in the process of building this new one, which is going to be bigger. Yeah. But it's an environmental pollutant. He wanted to use methane gas. He told him that, hey, we're just going to use, we're going to have these methane turbines temporarily. Now it's like, well, this is going to be permanent. And they said, well, we're only going to have 15. Now there's about 45. It's going to use about 1 million gallons of water today to cool these computers. And the people in Memphis are pushing back. And it's going to be in a historical Black area called Boxtown. And so there's this pushback. And so when I'm in Pine Bluff yesterday and I'm looking And the question came to my mind. This question, I know we are pushing back. There are a lot of people pushing back on some of these environmental policies. That's one way. But then you go into certain neighborhoods and you look and you saying, you know, the people in Boxtown, you know, stood up and said, hey, you know what? We're going to do something. We're going to do something. This is our neighborhood. This is our responsibility. We are going to do something. But then when I'm looking at certain neighborhoods, and I asked this question of one of my brother's neighbors, you know, in front of the house where they stayed, in front of the duplex they stayed at, it was just trash. Just trash. And next door were 3 cars that were abandoned that just sitting there. And I asked, I said, hey, you know, have you ever thought about picking up the trash in front of your yard? Yeah, man, it ain't my responsibility. That's what I pay the city for. I said, I understand that, but that trash, you know, can cause all types of things. You know, it's gonna cause bugs, it's gonna bring in mosquitoes, it's all. Man, that ain't got nothing to do with me. That's the city responsibility. Okay. And I said, what about these abandoned cars? You know, these cars are sitting there, you know, they have fluids in them that eventually those fluids are going to start to drip. Those fluids are going to start to drain. The rust from the car is going to get into the ground. It's going to seep in the groundwater. And he looked at me and he said, in so many words, I can't, no, I'm on the air, so I can't use the exact words he said. But basically, he said, see, that's what's wrong with people like you. And these not the words he used, but he said, that's wrong with people like you. He said, you're always telling folks what they need to do, what they should do. He said, but I don't care. It ain't bothering me. You know, and basically, I don't care. If somebody gets sick, that's on them. That's why they got a hospital. But I don't care. And I get tired of people telling me or suggesting to me what I could do. I said, okay. And I said, then you just get out the hospital with respiratory problems. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what they got to do? I said, nothing, man. Nothing. Did they tell you what was causing the respiratory problem? No, they were talking about the air. I don't know what they're talking about. Air. I said, okay, no problem. Yeah, I just asked the question. Yeah. But it's. I wish I could use the language he used, but I can't.
If they let you say everything else, I don't see why you don't.
But it got me to thinking. You know, even tomorrow with this action, part of it's going to be with talking about environment, and even with what Elon Musk is doing in Memphis, and what's going on, even with the lithium mining that they're doing in Arkansas, that people are starting. Like, hold up. You know, what about the waste from the lithium mine? You know, this groundwater, the water that we use that is in these rural areas, they have to dig wells. They don't have the infrastructure for water like we do here in Little Rock. So they dig wells. So if you have lithium mining, that waste from that lithium mine is going back into the ground, which contaminated the ground, which is going to contaminate the groundwater that eventually people are going to be drinking. So where is the responsibility of us individually? Where is that responsibility? And like I said, I know there are things that we do collectively to try to make things happen. But shouldn't there be some responsibility on us? I think Sullivan used to always talk about the adopt the sign. He would get mad about these groups that adopted the sign, but they would be trash. And I think we would tell us, well, why don't you just start picking trash up? You know, so where do our responsibility, where does our responsibility lie? when we see a neighbor that has a car that's just been sitting there for years, rusting away, do we just ignore it and just say, hey, that's their business? That they ain't got nothing to do with me? Or do we say, hey, something needs to be done about this because eventually it's going to affect me? So that's the question in a way. I know I said a lot of different things, but that's basically the question. What is our responsibility when it comes to in taking care of the environment, taking care of our the things in our neighborhoods? I'm gonna take this call real quick.
Oh, thank you for calling our company.
So shout out to Charles Mugaga, listening all the way from Uganda, Africa. Hey, Charles, I ain't talked to you in a while. Also, Lo says this to you about Elon Musk's supercomputer, the XAI, which is called Grok. Methane in and of itself is a clean gas composed of one element of carbon and four elements of hydrogen, making CH4. When hydrogen burns, it only leaves water vapor. So that's something that he wants to offer to the conversation. I don't think that that is all that's happening in Memphis, because it almost sounds like you are giving Musk permission to do this because it's not going to cause any problems. But we already know that it's causing pollutants in the air. So I think maybe this is just a form of education about what methane is. But as it relates to what's happening in Memphis, then it is what's happening in Memphis is not innocuous, and it's intentional. It's by design. So if you want to respond to that, Lo, then you can. When you ask the question about personal responsibility, it's interesting because I was just thinking about this about 2 days ago. I was walking on my way back to my house. And so because I was on my way back to my house, I was tired and I did not feel like doing anything but getting in my rocking chair and just resting until my heart rate went down. That's all I wanted to do. But I saw this plastic bag that was in the street, like like it had just flown off of the sidewalk. So it was just right there on the street. And I thought, and it was in front of my neighbor's house. It wasn't in front of my house, it was in front of my neighbor's house. And I said, I don't even feel like picking it up. I'm tired. I'm trying to get to this chair, and then it ain't my house. No way he ought to pick it up because I know he was out here. I know he saw it. And then I remembered something from when I was a resident. So I was a hall director at Smith Hall in Dallas, Texas, when I was at seminary, Perkins School of Theology on the campus of Southern Methodist University. I don't know why I have to say all. Every time I have to say it all. I can't remember. I got to say it all. And so I had this supervisor who talked to me about the importance of cultivating a culture within my building where if anybody saw trash, you would pick it up. Because psychologically, if you see trash on a regular basis, psychologically, you assume that that's where it's supposed to be. If you're used to seeing the trash and you see trash, it's no big deal. If you're not used to seeing trash and you see trash, you have a tendency to pick it up because in your mind, you're saying this does not belong here. And so you pick it up yourself. And so every time you see the trash, you pick up the trash, then there's no trash. Then people don't see trash. They don't expect trash. So when trash is apparent, then they're like, wait a minute. Oh my goodness, something is wrong. Let me fix this. And so we don't think, especially about Black folks in America, we don't think enough about how trauma, racism, environmental injustice, all of those things impact us psychically, impact our psyche. And so this man who you're talking to, he is used to seeing trash there. He doesn't think anything about it because that is normal for his environment. Right. But if it were such that every person who saw trash picked up the trash, or if you're like me, it ain't even my trash, and you pick it up, then you create an environment where trash is not the norm, and so people will react to it when they see
it. Good morning.
Call you on there.
Yes, I love this topic because, where I grew up, we lived on a farm, and my parents, we had our own dump on our property. So every spring break, we would push the trash back an extra 50 yards. That extra care about something, you take care of it. It's a mental mindset that it's not my job, it's not my business. I went to Jackson, Mississippi 3 weeks ago to a restaurant, a very popular restaurant. And what do they have outside of the establishment sitting there in front of the window? 2 beer bottles. And I say to the people that work there, you got 2 beer bottles here. You need to come and pick it up. Oh, we'll get to it. We'll have somebody do it. Say it the second time, 10 minutes later. Oh, we'll get that person out there. The third time I said to a young lady, come and follow me. I'm going to show you something. I showed her the beer bottles. I told the other young lady, bring the trash can. I didn't ask her to pick it up. I picked it up and put it in the trash can. We get inside the restaurant, and she gets loud. Oh, you're rude. You are rude. All I pointed out to you, and I said this for a reason. I used to be in upper management. And if I popped into your store on an unsurprised visit, and I had to approach you the way I approached all 2 of you, kindly, and nobody responded, every one of you would have been fired on the spot. The manager had to come and tell this young lady, you wrong. You are wrong. What she's telling you is right. Because the customer should not have to tell you to pick up the bottle. But the customer picked up the bottle because I did not like the appearance of what it looked like for me and my guests to come to this restaurant. Now, like I said, it's not just a black thing. It's a white thing. It's a Mexican thing. But I'm going to tell you what the Mexicans do. They clean up around their property. Why? Because they're going in business. Why? They're going to buy your houses. Why? They're going to pay to take over. Why? Their kids are coming to the school. Why? Their kids are going to get that education. Why? Because those kids are going to walk out into those businesses and take over. Now, we got to get the mindset that we want to take over too, like our ancestors did about 30, 40, 50, and 100 years ago. But when we sit there and say it's somebody else's responsibility, well, our mindset is in the wrong place.
Okay. All right. Thank you, caller.
Yeah, and I agree with her 100%. Everything that she said, I agree with 100%. And I just saw that flashing. And I feel like going back to what the young man said that you were on, you were in conversation with. He says it's the government's responsibility. That's why he pays his taxes so that they can clean up the trash. And this hits at the heart of my conversation that I've been having lately about living outside of the system. If you're saying that it's the government's responsibility to pick up the trash and yet your trash accumulates and you see it all in front of your house, clearly the government does not care about you. So for you to say, well, they need to do it because it's their responsibility, you're going to give them permission to do what you can do all by yourself. What difference does it make? What does the taxes have to do with it based on what the previous caller just said? Why don't you want better for yourself? And so for us to keep waiting on the system to do something for us, it just boggles my mind. At what point are you going to realize that the system doesn't care about you, nor your house, nor your trash?
Yeah, and one thing we have to do, and I've said this before, as you learn better, you do better. And I don't mind letting people know who have helped me to grow in a lot of ways. Sometimes I have to do things on air that I don't like to do. I have to give Denise credit sometimes. Y'all know I can't.
You act like it's killing you.
It's killing me. Yeah. But she has helped me learn how to connect the dots. So when you start talking about this trash and going back to what I was saying, caller, just give me 1 second to get this. Wait, let me go ahead and get the call, then I'll come back to it. Caller, you on there?
Yes, people love dog, brother Tony here. Now, my deal is, if we got a city that has code enforcement officers, and sometimes code enforcement officers, they turn a blind eye to a lot of things, especially if you got a area. Do you remember that red Thomas Inn down there by the Booker School? Now, I did a film down there. I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but down there at the red carpet Inn, it's graffiti all over the building. And you're talking about, that atrocity, we say we according to our environment. It seems like crime by design when the code enforcement officers don't look at me. That's right down the street from Clearway Park. Where this red carpet in, where we remember that they kind of sabotage.
You breaking up, Carla. We can't hear you.
But what I'm saying is, if you're gonna have areas that large that's owned by the federal government, like you say, if they act like they don't care, we need to make sure that places like that, you say the cars that sit for years, you got a big hotel down there that can be used for the homeless. They don't want to use the city area, but that's the exact place that they could be to have housing for the homeless. But you get graffiti and you got all kind of, well, I call it the eyesore. I used to say black eyes too, because we do act according to our environment. And I want to thank the city for fixing up a lot of areas, especially the Wright Avenue and all the areas that they spent money that I was really doing some films about and really on them about. But at the same time, it's a lot can be done, whether it's Time Bluff or the other areas. We need to know if the federal government is owning this property and they got six around saying, keep out, that means you can't go near it to clean up whether you want to or not, because it's picked up. But from the fence, you can see, and the kids that's coming through the area, they're seeing this. I don't know if y'all get the big picture or not, but this crime by design, and we acting according to our environment. If Black Lives Matter, we have to take a better look at what's really going on. Why do the code enforcement officers and all this not pay attention or not start and sitting with what they need to do? They say sweep around your own when you say sweep around. This is a movement property. And I think the government ought to take the lead in there when they this up and they at the same time it's an integral and it can be used by $5 if they use it, it can come again in a constructive manner. Not kids to be destructive.
Carla, I'm gonna have to cut you off because you keep going in and out, and it becomes distorted.
What I said was in, and we pay attention to what's in and do the right thing. Again, who's still on y'all?
Let me get these comments in. So Lo is responding to me responding to him about the methane. He says, no, I'm not saying that there will not be pollution, but other elements involved in the plant may be the culprit, not methane. I'm not saying that there will not be pollution, but other elements involved in the plant may be the culprit, not methane. That's what he said.
Yeah, and I think when you read reading the article and reading everything about it, methane it's going to be a problem. That methane gas is going to be a problem because they're using so many turbines to run it. Is a heat signature coming out. You're right. Methane does burn out, but methane gas has been proven to break down the ozone layer because of the heat it produces. That's where the issue becomes with the heat that's being produced from this methane gas, from all these turbines. And we know one of the issues that's going on in this country, in this world, is this global warming. And global warming is causing a very significant shift in the climate of this world. going back to what I was saying about
I got another comment, but do you have a phone? Is it, see how it's, you don't see it blinking?
yeah, gotcha.
Hello, thank you for calling.
Okay, here's a comment from Ramen. They say that one man's trash is another man's treasure. In a society where individuals are free, the responsibility to do what is right remains with self. Outside of this law, proselytizing can turn into a satanic attribute where good intentions may end in violence. And Lowe says that the Red Carpet Inn is privately owned.
Denise,
Oh, I'm
Brother
sorry.
Tony.
Good morning,
Good
good morning,
morning.
Ziggy.
Very quickly, and those on the web and listen, the loss of community isn't felt or even shared by many in the population of, like John Kane would say, quarter of the Negroes, or what's referred to as our black community. The present culture isn't bound by traditions that's handed down by elders, like keep your spaces clean and do for your neighbors. The federal government, and this is a very sparsely area of Arkansas, but it's a national park, they had a hog farm. I used to float the buffalo, I get canoes and Dover. But the folks up there, and wasn't that many of them, but they got together and got rid of a hog farm that was worth untold millions of dollars because it was going to pollute the groundwaters and the areas of the Buffalo River. We have a river right here, biggest river in the state, the Arkansas River. And we should never be hungry because we've got a river. At one time, they used to say don't eat out of it because it was quote unquote nasty, but then they dammed it up and now they say it's clean and the fish and what have you that's in there are environmentally clean. A lot of folks don't remember that. But we have tradition to blame or to refer to as what we used to do several decades ago in keeping our communities clean. These very communities that they're talking about now used to be squeaky clean, all up and down over there by Petaway Park. Folks had gardens, you can look at some of the houses and tell that they used to be very, very well kept. And our neighborhoods were not able to sustain that look. And so it's a matter of our losing our tradition and our culture, I think, that makes for a code enforcement. The police to come in and tell you about your cars and things like that. Most cars, they can't repair them anymore, so they just leave them there. Or they don't have the finances to clean up their homes. And like so being said, here's a building that at one time was considered to be a monument to the achievements of black folks. Dr. Jewell and all those folks were going on to ancestor land, and the building is standing there as a monument to what they tried to do or what they did. And I just want to say that if we listen to our elders and the folks who at one time practiced these good, clean messages, and they didn't have riding lawnmower zero turn, but they had brooms and sickles, and they still kept their yards clean and their neighborhoods safe and environmentally friendly. So I just wanted to put that out there, and hopefully somebody will say, well, yeah, he's right. It's just our tradition now. The culture now, nobody cares anything about anything other than what belongs to them. Thank you very much.
But I do think that part of that is about our psyche when you talk about people who keep cars that are no longer able to move. Like some people are like, this is the first car that I ever bought. Some people are like, oh, this is the car, I'm gonna fix it up, but I'm waiting to have disposable income. I don't have disposable income because I'm working hourly on a job that doesn't care about me having a living wage, and I want to make sure that I have a car to give to my daughter. Like there are a lot of reasons why we do this that's attached to some kind of sentimental value, some kind of fear that I'll never be able to do this again, or some kind of legacy that we're trying to leave. And so a lot of that is stuff that we need to work through, things that we need to have conversation about, things that we need to realize are trauma bonds so that we can make better decisions about how we keep our environments, because it does matter the way we see what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think you corrected, and going back to what I was saying earlier about connecting the dots, the more I sat on this porch with my brother's neighbor, and the more he talked, and the more he can, talk about what's going on. He talked about that, man, every time it rains, the street flood. Every time it rains, you this, and I would, and I started telling myself, well, you see the drainage ditch, you see the drainage, whatever they call the storm drain, where where the water runs in. I said, you see this trash that's in your front, that's right there? That trash is being washed into that storm drain. And eventually that storm drain is gonna get clogged up. When it gets clogged up, then it's gonna flood the street. Now, what you're asking, and I understand, is that it should be the responsibility of the city to come and unclog that drain. But when most cities now, their resources are stretched so thin, it may take a minute before they can get there. But if you want to alleviate it, pick the trash up, then you don't have to worry about it. And I think there has to be this cohesiveness between individual responsibility and the city government city government or federal government that has that shared responsibility, and it does. And Denise, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. I don't think we ever think about that. To be honest with you, because I grew up in the projects most of my life, I had a project mentality. There were certain things that I accepted because that was my environment that I grew up with. And I had to change. The first time Denise told me I was middle class, I lost my damn mind.
I said you.
It's a middle class? Who are you talking to? I'm the hood. But when you start thinking about it, and that's where it starts. That's where it starts, listen, audience. It starts with a conversation, and it starts with a different mindset. And if you can start having a different mindset psychologically, you can start seeing things differently, and it'll make you want to act differently. Caller, you're there.
Okay, I hope I got a better connection with the solar beam again. Now, this is what I want to talk about, the adoptive sign and all that. They got those China guys to be fools now. Now, if we took out of school, now most of these kids that graduate, they're not going to college. But if we could have a work program, we could keep our kids sparkling clean. I say no because I live out there in Marville, but I have such a love for Little Rock because I had a business right there on the corner of Wright Avenue and Battery.
Oh, you live in the good suburbs, right? So you don't have to worry about trash.
Well, I can say it like this. I spend most of my time in Little Rock. The rest of the time, like I say, I provide, I take care of families. Provide, but anyway, that's enough of my business. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is this. None of us can volunteer for nothing. We can get paid.
Yeah, solar beam. So hold. You still breaking up. You're like almost every other word you're breaking up. So it's not coming in.
That's the system that don't want me to get out when I got.
No, it ain't. It ain't the system. It's probably your phone or where you are because everybody else been cleared. So
that's what I'm talking about. Now, let's see, can we do this for just a second? But I want to talk about all the jobs that we can supply to our young kids that need money. As high as groceries are, and we telling them adopt a sign, adopt a street, when we can have a work program that can provide jobs for our kids, and everybody, always say, get off the porch and do something. That's one of our problems. We have to put ourselves in the area of being constructive, either repairing, cleaning, doing things that are constructive. And I'll get off the line. I want to hear what Brother Lowe had to say about the red carpet in. Like I said, I am sure that our ancestors would want us to carry on their legacy and beautify that area. Like I said, it's on the federal ownership now, but that used to be over our ownership. When I say for the ancestors, we need to do something to say, hey, we appreciate what you tried to do, and here it is, and let's do it. I mean, keep the love to all.
So what Lowe said, he simply said that the red carpet inn is privately owned.
And so here's this thing about the responsibility. I know Sullivan, you were talking about you need a work program, you need to get these young kids to working. I remember once, when I would go, in the projects, we would have people, what you call them, and even though some people would look at them and have a bad thought about them, whether they were pimps, whether they were winos. A lot of the pimps or the ones doing, or running the books or doing bookings or doing something else, they would come to us as kids and say, here, come here. Here's a couple of dollars. What I want y'all to do, all that paper that's out there around the playground, all those bottles that's left, I want you to go through the buildings, and find all that trash and paper and throw it away in here. Because the one thing they would always say to us, if you learn to live in filth, you will always live in filth. And so it was their way, even though what they were doing was crazy, or what they thought, they were doing their thing. But they always wanted us, and I think a lot of us, they just wanted us to put a few dollars in our pocket, but they wanted us to work. And even when I came to Arkansas to stay with my grandmother, people in the neighborhood, they would see you and say, hey, boy, come here. Hey, come here. Here's a lawnmower. Here's the gas. Will you cut my grass? And here, you could come cut my grass. Other people in the neighborhood would say, hey, we want you to go through the neighborhood and pick up the trash. And so it was community coming together, not only to provide something for us to do, but also provide a way to make the neighborhood clean, and make the neighborhood look good. And when you talk about that, Solar Big, why is it difficult? That's what I'm talking about with this individual responsibility versus the city responsibility. It's easy to blame, to say it's the city's fault that this is like this, but we can, as a community, we can say, go to these young people and say, listen, this neighborhood needs to be clean. I'll tell you what, we'll give you some money just to go through and clean up the neighborhood. That's something you can do on your own. You don't have to go to the city and ask for a work program. You can be the work program for people. And that's just a thought. Call you on there. Caller?
Yeah, hold on one second. Oh, yeah. I hear all the ideas and things. But I'm going to start with a thing. I like to try to go to the basic principle of anything when I try to start it. Now, a city shouldn't have to tell a person about cleaning up the yard, cutting the grass. There shouldn't have to be laws for that. That should be a natural way of living for a person. Now, what we have is a crisis. I'm going to go right to the root. They got certain forms of child abuse. The way a person is raised up in a certain kind of atmosphere. That's not all over the place, because everybody is not raising their children the same way. They're teaching them different on a higher value lifestyle. Now, it's child abuse. If you don't teach the children, and bring them up with the right way of life, you are abusing them, and you're abusing every generation that come behind them, because they're gonna pass it down. Now they up here and wide this marijuana all wide open. You got parents in their ass up with the children smoking though, walking around with their ass hanging out in front of the children and everything else you can think of. Now, what kind of thought process a young man looking at his mama walk around with a crest up to her ass and a young girl probably right behind? We got to get the right thinking, and it's these leaders that call themselves pastors ain't doing the damn job for these people. They're not. You got all these pastors right churches around in Europe, and they can't say, hey, we gonna raise money to go build a house, refurnish some of these houses, and put some of our people to work, young people to work, replenish these houses. You gonna let somebody else come in your neighborhood and take all your money out your neighborhood while you sit up on your ass talking about the blood of Jesus or something. These people need to be taught. You don't need no religion to know how to live right. You just need a guideline, some real principles set in place. And we ain't getting that in our community. And I don't care nothing about some people calling it, talking about, I'm leaving my block and all that, hooping and hollering. I done had people walk out of church out, what was the title or something? I done waited at the door and asked them, and they couldn't even tell me what the hell they got out of something. So we need to change our thinking period about a lot of things that we do dumb. If they got something that ain't bringing you no value, get rid of it. Invest in something that, cause we got clothes hanging everywhere. They don't make no money. If you got trash shit around your house, it ain't making you no money. What you need it for? You shouldn't have to be throwing trash all in your neighborhood. Somebody gotta come along clean it. I don't know what's the with. You know, they got a thing said you can wake a person up, but you can't wake nobody up in a coma. I wanted the old people that ain't in a coma or something. They don't want to do nothing, no, it look like.
So let me get a couple of these comments in. So Lo asks the question, why are people depending upon the government when we, the people, can do for ourselves? Churches, fraternities, sororities, and other organizations, we could hire people to do this kind of work. And then Raman says, what about lifestyles that some may view as unclean or as dirty? What is the responsibility of the state, community, or individual? Now, that last part, I don't have anything to say about what is the responsibility of the state, community, or individual about the lifestyles of people that some might view as unclean or dirty. But when you start talking about the pimps, and when you start talking about the bookies and those kinds of people who were offering the children jobs in your community, I can see how these conversations are connected, where a person that's in church, that's a Christian, would say you shouldn't have anything to do with a person who is a bookie or who is a pimp, even though this person is trying to give this child, this youth, this young person, change their mindset. Hey, look, you need to be working. You need to be working for your community, but you don't have to work for free. You ought to get paid for your work. Like, you're teaching them all kinds of lessons, but the church won't let you talk to them because the church say these heathens. And so these conversations are all connected, especially in one way for me, is the demise of us as a people in many cases rests with religion.
Yeah, I agree with you. Religion is one of those systems. It's one of those isms that has caused a lot of problems. It has caused and fueled more animosity and more division than anything. And going back, there was this one bookie that basically was a gangster. But he used to always tell us this. He would always, when he would see us, you know, he would always give us a few dollars, but he would always say, he never wanted us to run numbers for him. He never wanted us to run numbers, but he'd give us a few dollars. He said, listen, I need for you to go over there. Even it was something so simple. He said, you see that fence line? You see all them weeds growing up? I just need for y'all to go there and just pull those weeds. We thought it was fun. You know, we were like, hey, we getting a few dollars just to pull these weeds. You know, but he used to always say, I want you to be better than me. You know, I want you to be better than me. And we never did understand that until I became older, until I became a young man. I went back and I saw him and I was talking to him. He said, you know, I made a choice in my life to live this type of life and to do this. He said, but I didn't want you and all of you to do the same. I wanted you to learn that you can do something better. I wanted you to learn that you can get better, but I also wanted you to learn that you can work and not be at risk of getting shot, going to jail, that there was things you can do. And I wanted you to understand that. And so that's why I would always try to give you a few little dollars so you can understand that. And I think you're right. So many times there is a miracle in someone that may not fit the mold of what you consider a miracle. Because I think we all are miracles at some time. We all should be a miracle to somebody. Just because I don't fit the mold of what a miracle should look like, he was a miracle to us because he knew, some of the things we were already doing, he could see. He saw us snatching purses. He saw us snatching gold chains. He saw us going to the store and stealing. And it was, to him, it was part of his responsibility to try to change that behavior. How do you change that behavior? Hey, let me give you, number one, let me give you something to do, but more importantly, let me give you some money to do it. Let me pay you for what you're doing, because what you're doing is you're trying to get some money. Yeah, you snatching purses, going to the store, you're trying to get some money. So if I can offset that with something you can do that won't put your life in your future at risk, I'm going to do it. And that's what all the bookies, the pimps, that's what they did. They tried to make it easier for us to do some things without having to go through what they went through.
I need to get a couple of comments in. This one is about Jesus. I guess Jesus should not have had anything to do with Mary Magdalene. If we're going to judge people's lifestyles and who you should talk to, Jesus would not have been in relationship with Mary Magdalene. And in fact, they were lovers, but we can talk about that later. Rahman says, isn't cleanliness, whether mentally or physically, a religion itself? That's something to think about. Isn't cleanliness, whether mentally or physically, a religion itself? And I just want to round the conversation out about doing better, because my mama and my daddy in particular, he wanted us to be better than he was. For him, that meant, since he had a college degree, we could not stop at going to high school, and we could not stop with a college degree. We needed to go further than he did, because under the circumstances that he was educated within, under the circumstances he was educated in, surely we could go a step further than he did, because of the opportunities and access that we had. So he wanted us to be better. So we had to have more education than he had. He expected us to have more money in our savings than he had. He expected us to live a life on a different level from him, because he too wanted us to be better than he was.
Okay. Hey, we are out of time. Great show, great conversation. Looking forward. We'll probably have to pick this up again next week, but just something to think about. A lot of great comments. Thank you for all who called in. Thank you for all the thoughts. Thank you for the comments that came in over social media. Make sure you tune in on Monday from 4 to 5 for Down with That with me and Neil. Next Tuesday for Community Voices with the Reverend Dr. Denise Darnell and the Toney Orr, and next Thursday for the workplace with Toney Orr and the Reverend Dr. Denise Donnell. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you can make it out tomorrow at 12 o'clock at the Doubletree Hotel, we will be doing an action where the Democratic National Executive Committee will be meeting. We want to get our voices to push them to fight more for a lot of the issues that are going on in this country. Hey, enjoy the rest of your day. Peace. Love you. Bye.
You're listening to